All right, we'll call the work session to order.
Okay.
Mr. Wiggins.
So Terry is joining us by Zoom. She is in Benton.
Hello.
And just taught a class, and I got text while you were teaching telling me how good of a job you were doing.
I'll have to pay those people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have, since last Thursday, Terry and I have put together some additional information and sent it out to the board individually. So we've sent out quite a bit of information to you guys and ladies. So only topic of discussion really today is certified salary schedule. I had told you that I would try to have something for classified salary schedule today, but have not had an opportunity, Terry and I have not had an opportunity to really focus on that. And we do not have a deadline for classified like we do certified. That May 1st deadline is for certified. So I'm going to propose that we kind of focus on certified salary schedule today. Try to get a direction that we want to go for something on maybe Thursday night. And then we'll kind of circle back to classified after we get this moving. And I've met with certified PPC once just to kind of talk about some parameters. I have not done that with classified yet because I was waiting to see how much money we had to play with or to figure on. And we actually got legislative sessions basically over, so we know for the most part what our funding is going to be, so we can focus on that. But I really want to try to get this nailed down a little bit and get some direction nailed down today, if that's okay with you all.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I do want to say something real quick.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows, when we had the meeting the other day and, going into this one is, Jody and I were able to talk and, there's not any ill feel problems or anything surrounding this. It's strictly just wanting to look at and see what we can do to make the most amount of money for our employees. And I know, look at the numbers, this is without changing anything, and that's all the questions I've ever had was, okay, this is worst case scenario. If we don't change anything, is there anything we're willing to or able to even look at? And the whole goal of it has always been a positive goal of, hey, what amount of money are we able to do since we're reworking this to put into our teachers, invest in our teachers and staff, all the staff pockets. So it's not any worries or lack of trust or any feelings negative other than I get frustrated when I don't get the information I want to get, to be able to make an informed decision. And that's kind of where I'm coming from on, our discussions the other day and everything. In here is, I'm just trying to, I want to see the picture. When I know we'll talk about a proposal that I just do numbers to on here that's really high. It's really high because it's very close to what the big four around here are doing. I don't know how that affects our budget. We do now with this information until I see it and say, oh, 900,000. Okay, that's what it would take to compete with the big, those. And I had no clue before that. So I want to thank Terry and Jody for all the work they've been putting in on this and the extra work to help get me that information. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I'll let y'all run along.
Okay, so I'm going to propose that we start. I'd sent you all some budget information, big picture budget information. It's a large spreadsheet. Terry and I had talked after our meeting last week about how we present the budget and how we give that financial update each month, and talked about maybe tweaking some things there so it's a little bit more clear and more, maybe the line items are a little bit better broken out. So Terry, do you want to talk anything about that, about what that spreadsheet that you provided before I show it and let them ask questions?
This is a spreadsheet that I teach all year long. I have it broken out by the different expense codes that the state allows us to use. This is a sheet I already keep. I refer to it every single month. But it is something I can share with you all if that's the type of information you would rather see than what our current financials look like.
So I've got that spreadsheet up on the screen. And one thing that I thought might make this a little bit more readable, usable, is when you get down to the expenses, it actually has salaries broken out by certified salaries, certified bonus, certified subs, certified sick leave payout, and then it does the same thing for classified. And what we have presented in the past has been strictly by budget codes that the state makes us use for each of our categories, and those budget codes aren't quite as descriptive or as broken down by this, so it's really hard to figure out what our classified salary expenses are looking at our budgets by budget code. Would that be accurate, Terry?
Yes, because like they can see the teacher's salary cost, but they can't really see what the benefits
Right.
are, what the benefits are added to that. And it's, you know, classified, all of the benefits right now are just jumbled into operating expenses. They are not broken out. But we can certainly make any kind of change that the board would like to see.
So I don't know that I'm asking you for decisions right now. I'd like some feedback, Terry, and I would like some feedback. If this is more helpful, then we can start trying to transition to that with our board reports and with our budgeting items.
This is the report that I use because it's broken out by month for me. When I do projections for the end of the year, like how much do I think we're gonna continue to spend on payroll? Well, you look back over the last few months and project it out. This is the spreadsheet I use to do that.
So you use this already, Terry? So asking
Yes.
to see it isn't asking a lot extra.
No.
Okay.
No,
Because this was
no,
this was
it's-
excellent for me. I mean, I loved this. It was very easy to understand. I again, I didn't want to ask for 3 or 4 extra hours on your part, but I loved the look of this. This was great for me.
Okay,
Okay, so
I would probably do it like, here's the budget, here's what we did this month, and here's where we are year to date. Is that what you're looking
Perfect.
for?
Perfect.
Okay.
Would love
Okay.
that. And thank you. And thank you.
No problem. Now, what won't happen this Thursday, because I'm missing right
What?
So one thing that this shows that maybe is not obvious at times is this shows the last several years and it shows what our beginning of the year budget was, what our actual expenses was. And so, and then it gives kind of a over under actual down there at the bottom. There was something mentioned last week about being $2 million in the black on last year's budget. We were quite a bit in the black on last year's budget. Actually, this is this year's. We were quite a bit in the black last year's budget. That 91,000 actually is what we showed in the books right there. However, that's with moving 2.5 million into the building fund and, well, moving 2.5 million into the building fund. The debt service fund we had already planned on. That's what we're paying. That's our mortgage that we're paying off basically. So we moved 2.5 million over there. We had planned to move some over there. So the last several years, if you look, we've moved some money into the building fund. Some of those were planned ahead of time for different projects. Some of it was at the end of the year and we ended up with excess. Now, the last 3 years have been interesting because we've ended up getting a whole lot of money that we had not planned on at the beginning of the year. So, for example, in 1920, we did a bond refinance that gave us extra money in that year's budget that we put into building fund. We also gave bonuses that year. In 2021, we got COVID funds that we were able to kind of take the place of some of our district funding in our budget. So that allowed us to move some money. And then this past year, 21-22, we had a technology grant, we had COVID funds again. And so that's allowed us to save some money over the course of the year or through the course of the year. That is not recurring money that we can depend on for salaries. It's one-time money because of the grant or the specific situation that arose during the course of the year or the bond refund. So that gave us an opportunity to put some money aside. Now, that's been important to us historically, because since 2008, the last time that we passed a millage increase, that millage increase was specifically for the high school. So the additional money that was brought in from that millage increase was supposed to take care of that bond payment for the next 30 years. Since then, we've not added any millage, but we've been able to do a lot of projects around the year, around the district, by whatever money's left over at the end of the year. We put some of it toward the building fund, we put some of it into a bonus or toward raises for the next year. And so by not charging or by not asking our voters to raise taxes again to build anything, we've been able to do, I'm going to try to go through a list here, and I should have put this together ahead of time so I don't miss stuff. But we were able to redo this building from a middle school, old high school, junior high setup to the middle school that it is now. That was an $8 million project, a little bit more. We have added a library at Northside. We've added 4 pre-K classrooms at Northside. We've renovated the old library into an administration complex at Northside. We've built a stadium. We've renovated a track. We have built a freezer storage, commodity storage unit at maintenance. We have built a cast building at the high school. And currently we are working on the administration building, and then we have baseball, softball that's in the queue. So those are all things, facility improvements around the district that we've been able to do since that last millage increase that did not require any additional millage or taxes from our voters, but it was because we had some money left over that we were able to put back at the end of each year to focus on some of those things. And those were things that needed to happen. Some of those things had been needed for a long period of time. So that gives you an idea of kind of how we've ended the last few years. I anticipate next year will be a much more standard year. Some of the grants that we've had are running out. You never know what grants are going to become available during the course of a year. We've had technology grants the last 2 years that we didn't know about until November or December that we applied for and received. And those were pretty good sums of money. I know we have a math grant currently that's paying for curriculum that's going to run out this year, so we will be on the hook for paying for that curriculum next year. That's going to be an additional cost that we have not had. So anyway, if this is helpful to you all, then Terry will work on trying to provide this, our budget information in this format from now on. Are there any questions over that spreadsheet? I'm just showing a very small part of it right there, but.
So on the 2021 and 21-22, we paid bonuses out. That affected that actual over under.
Yes.
Which if we do something going forward, like we're talking about, we'd be not necessarily doing bonuses. We'd be changing the
No.
scale.
So what we have done with bonuses, this year's bonus at Christmas was because we had budgeted and thought we had a pretty solid budget for this year, but then we had 150 new students, and that's about $940,000 that we were going to receive this year. We had projected that out. So the bonus that we gave at Christmas or in December was $1,200, and that cost us right at $1 million. So basically, when we realized we were going to get that money in this year that we did not anticipate, we put that back out in the form of a bonus to our teachers in December. Last year, when we realized we were going to be quite a bit off at the end of the year, we came back and did a bonus in June last year to use some of that money and give it back to our teachers. So when we...
In addition to the money, to the bonus they got from the COVID money.
Right, we gave 2 bonuses last year.
And bonuses from the ESSER funding.
So that number would be $1,091,000 without the bonus paid.
Yes, so roughly. So as we go forward, as we're talking about these proposals are based on what I know, what we think we know, that we're getting in new funding for next year. And that's the LEARNS reimbursement to cover most of the cost of the LEARNS raises. And then that additional growth money that's going to become ADM money next year. That's kind of the money that we're looking at, to spend on certified salaries in these proposals. Now, understand that that's all the new money that I know we're going to get for next year. Well, that's not quite true. I know we're going to get a foundation funding increase, but since we're focused on certified with this money, I've kind of set aside in my head that money that we're going to get for a foundation funding, per student funding increase. We're going to try to do something with classified there because we desperately need to do something with classified salaries. So these proposals that I'm talking about today don't have anything to do with classified. That money is going to be kind of a separate pot, and we think we can put together something fairly attractive out of that per student funding increase. And we would be planning on using every penny of that for classified. So between those two proposals, the one today, whatever we come to, and whatever's going to happen with classified with that per student funding, we would be pretty much allocating every additional dollar that we think we're going to get next year for salaries only. So that would not affect anything curriculum-wise that might increase. It would not be looking at increasing budgets. So I think we're being, honestly, by allocating all of that to salaries, I think we're being somewhat aggressive, but I also think that we'll be able to deal with that. I think we'll be able to deal with whatever we have to do from a budget standpoint and curriculum standpoint for inflationary factors next year. I think we'll be able to deal with that. It also, these proposals also do not include anything new that we would add, any new positions. I told you last week, I know we're going to have to add at least one elementary position, maybe a couple. And then there's a couple of other things that are kind of up in the air in the district. What we're going to do with our elementary ALE and with special ed, there may be a couple of extra spots that are going to be required there as well. So that would be additional cost too. So again, putting all of our money, additional money right now into the salaries like this is a little bit aggressive because there's going to be some unknowns that come up. But Terry and I have talked about it, and I think we feel confident in the first proposal. Beyond that, I think it would make us a little nervous, but we can look at those.
So, question. So, by being this aggressive on the front end and using our growth funding from this year for next year, which we traditionally do Christmas bonuses or whatever, and we're already going to allocate that for the classified staff, there could be a possibility then of no bonuses at Christmas or year end.
I would anticipate right now that from what we know right now, if we adopt one of these proposals, I would anticipate that we would not budget for a bonus, but we did not budget for a bonus this year. It's because we had additional growth in the school year that was able to happen. So we would not budget. I would anticipate we would not budget for a bonus in the coming budget. But if we come back in August and we're up 100 students or 150 students again, that means we're going to get growth funding throughout next year, which would enable us to do something.
Right, but it has to.
Yes.
It's triggered by
Yes.
growth of students. That's my point. Okay.
Terry, would you like to add anything to that?
This year it is difficult because of all of the changes in the LEARNS Act. There are a lot of things in that act that we are being mandated to do that have no funding recommendation for. And so that's concerning to me. I am more than happy to raise salaries. I think it's an awesome thing, but as Joey stated, it's a little nerving knowing that every single dollar is going into salary without some kind of cushion. But as I sit and I speak to my peers in my position across the state today, lots of people are doing the bare minimum. I mean, they're doing the 50,000 and 2,000 more, and that's it. And so we are being, I think we're being innovative, and on the front end of what we're doing, people are just blown away that we're considering keeping salary schedules because they simply can't do it. And so I feel we're very fortunate to have this problem right now, but it's new territory for everybody.
So to reinforce that, I mentioned that I'd met with 13 of the superintendents in Northwest Arkansas. There are very few of them who are actually thinking about trying to actually build a salary schedule this year. Most of them are doing the bare minimum and taking some time next year to figure it out. I think we can do something with a salary schedule, but also the safe play is to do the bare minimum and get into next year and figure out with our PPCs what we want to do. But I actually think that we can do something. We're in a unique position because we had a lot of growth this year. That 150 kids, that $940,000 gives us some ability to do some things that others are not able to do. So, unless you all would like to talk about something else that I've sent to you, I thought I would just go through the proposals, and we may not go through all of them, but I want to show you how to look at what you've got in front of you. And then I'd mentioned in an email to you, if you all want to just play with some numbers to see what something would look like, we can do that. I can do it on the big screen up there. But I put several proposals, we put several proposals together to try to give you an idea of when you make changes here or there, kind of how that affects the overall price, okay? I'm not presenting all of these thinking that we have the ability to do all of them, because some of them would cost us a lot of extra money and it would put us in trouble, I think. Well, I know. So if you all are okay with it, I'm going to go through proposal number 1 and just kind of show you what's in there and the process that we went through in trying to put it together. Is that okay?
Can I?
Sure.
Just one question. Are they in a particular order, like?
They're in
not
the order that we put them together over
Right.
the weekend.
Okay.
And
So it's not like,
no,
1, 2.
no,
It's not like best or worst.
Right.
no.
And whatever we decide today is going to PPC.
Yes, and I would rather us not vote today because it's a work session. But if you all give me a general direction for Thursday night, I'll present something in the agenda Thursday night that you all would push to PPC as your recommendation. And then PPC would have 10 days to look that over, provide feedback, and then you all would come back to vote on that at some point before the end of the month.
And then one other, we talked briefly about the nurses change. Any of those, none of these reflect if we did that, correct?
So what you are looking at here is certified salary schedules, and currently the nurses are on classified salary schedules. So I would anticipate that we would handle that as part of the classified discussion. I did send you some information. Actually, it's in this spreadsheet on the second tab at the bottom. That if we moved all of our nurses to certified salary schedule on proposal 1 right here, kind of depends on what we're looking at as far as a proposal. But on proposal 1, that's the additional cost.
Right.
That is not reflected in the cost on this proposal. That would come out of our classified. Currently, what I'm looking at for classified, the additional per student funding is it's between 550,000 and 600,000. Is that right, Terry?
Yeah.
So we would be looking at, if we did that, taking 102,000 out of that for 7 nurses. We have approximately 300 classified staff. So that puts it in a little perspective. We did do a study last year and realized our nurses were underpaid with respect to some surrounding districts and 6A school districts. And we gave a raise to our nurses that averaged about $6,000 last year. There was a bill this year that would have put them on certified salary schedule, and had that passed, we would have figured out a way to do that. But it didn't pass. It did not pass because there was not. Terry's saying what I'm saying.
But there wasn't funding attached.
Yes, it did not pass because they could not get funding attached to it. So what I heard when that bill was presented, they were going to try to come up with $4 million to fund that proposal, and they did not do that, and so that proposal did not pass. Okay, so I am kind of at your I'm at your whim. Would you like to go through proposals and see what that looks like, and the work, how we put that in there, how we figured it? Would you like to go a different direction?
I'd say this is a good starting point.
Travis let me know that he had to go to be on a work call at 11:30, so he's going to be out for a few minutes, but that's fine.
I'd say just start with that. Are you guys good with that? Starting with this, or we can
Okay.
do additional comments. I'll make a comment real quick that from the, how many more years funding is there for the, I can't remember what that's called, the
COVID money?
what?
COVID money?
No,
Yes, sir.
that we used to hire the coaches, those
Instructional.
instructional.
So that was COVID money. It was actually
Okay.
ESSER, ESS.
ESSER?
Yes.
Okay, that was,
Next year we have to have everything spent before November or December of '24. So next school year, this coming school year is the last full year. And then there'll be some cleanup before November of that following school year. But we actually, before we started absorbing some positions, we were gonna be overspent in that fund. If we went through next year with all of the things that we were currently doing, we were gonna be overspent by about $500,000. And so we've started pulling back on some of those things and slowly absorbing some of that stuff back in the district.
I see, okay. All right,
So, on the, just real quick, the technology grant, is that just a wash? I'm assuming we get the grant money in, we buy the technology.
Yeah, we buy it and then they pay for it directly. There's no money in or out of our account.
Okay.
So it's it's a one-time money that we didn't know we were getting. And it was all money we were gonna already spend, so it saved us that money for that year. Cause what we got to do is we had already planned to replace Chromebooks that were going out of date. Well, the grant allowed us to buy the Chromebooks. And so, that money, so last year the grant was it $500,000
It was
last year?
It was in that neighborhood.
Between $500,000 and $600,000. And so it saved out of our technology budget. Then this year it was like $300 and something thousand. So that's gonna be reflected in this year's budget that it saved. But we still don't have to buy Chromebooks next year. So when you're looking at that across the board, it's hard, it looks like, oh, we have this big chunk left and this big chunk left, but those grants cause that, and there are no more grants that we know of now. We may come out next year and what happened this year, they didn't get all the money away in the first year. So they had this money left over and it said, okay, if nobody else has applied, if you applied last year and want the grant again, put it in and we'll see if we have enough money. Well, we went ahead and applied and got another $300,000+, but now that particular grant is gone. But those were one-time things to buy Chromebooks. And it helped us because we were already gonna buy Chromebooks. It wasn't something we had to go out and purchase. that we had not intended to buy anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to the proposal number one and just kind of take you through the process that we went through to get to this. So this is, what you're looking at is Terry started work putting this spreadsheet together after we received the information from the state on how they were gonna fund the LEARNS Act raises. There was a specific cycle report from September of last year that they pulled to determine the salaries they were going to base the raises on. And so this first tab is Terry's work, looking at that spreadsheet, comparing to our current employees and seeing if we came out to the positive or to the negative. And then she set up individual tabs across the bottom for each of the columns. So when I say columns, on the actual salary schedule, we have a bachelor's column, a bachelor's plus 15, a master's plus 15, master's plus 30, and doctorate. So she set up an individual tab across the bottom here that has each of those: bachelor, bachelor plus 15, master's, so on and so forth. So that bachelor's tab is what I have pulled up here. I'm going to make it a little bigger. So going across there, she has our original step in our salary schedule, years of experience, the original bachelor number from what it currently is, and then what it has to be, column G in the gray there, what it has to be for the LEARNS Act. So it starts with 50,000 those first 9 years, it has to be that. And then if you go up $2,000 each time, each cell below that, that tells you what it has to be in our new salary schedule. And then the LEARNS raise is the amount of raise that if we went bare minimum, that's the raise that everybody would get in those slots. And then the proposed steps is where we kind of played with numbers. And so that's the one place in this spreadsheet right here that I was able to, or we were able to input some numbers, and it figured everything, tabulated everything. And so then 23-24 proposed bachelor, we would start with 50 at the top, and then those proposed steps would be added in, just like the numbers that I've added in there. And then column K, the general fund raise, that's the amount of money that step would actually cost the district out of district funds that we are currently not spending. And then the total raise is the total raise for the individual that falls in that slot. So the general raise is how much it costs out of our district funds, and you would add that to over there the LEARNS raise. Supposedly that's what we're getting from the state for this raise. So you add those two together and it should equal the total raise on the last column, if that makes sense. So all of those things were important to us in different ways, because that general fund raise is going to tell us what the difference is for us for next year. All right. So we went through that process with every one of those columns. For this proposal, we went to bachelor's plus 15, did the same thing. The one place that I could put in play with numbers was proposed steps, and then it just shifted everything across. And one thing we had to be careful of, because we have to give everybody a $2,000 raise, as we come down through here, we have to make sure that the total raise for the individual actually adds up to $2,000. So if you look at that cell right there, it shows that the raise for that individual that falls at year 22 on a bachelor's would only increase $1,475 for next year. That would be their total raise. What that does not take into account is the step raise that they would go from this year to next year and move from 21 to 22 years. So that step raise, if you come over here, is $600. So if you add those together, that person would actually get a raise of $2,075 from what they had on their contract this year. So that actually meets the letter of the law. And at some point, no matter how we do this, if there's some rhyme or reason to it, our total raise is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as we go down. And then the way this one is put together with a little bit bigger bumps at the bottom than at the top, it starts coming back up at the end, plus the year 24 and 25 being added on helps with that. And we did the 24 and 25 to try to give some of our veteran teachers a little bit of a win out of this, so that there is that bump on the back end too, if that makes sense. So we did that for every one of the columns across here. And then I'm going to skip over to the general fund tab. This is a big one. This is where it calculates everything. So Terry's got everybody, every certified staff member in the district on this tab. And it goes all the way down, and she's got it figured to where here's our proposal on N. Column N is our proposal for this particular one. And the cost to district here is $848, but that doesn't take into account our growth funds, okay? So what we did was on the actual front sheet that you have, the salary schedule sheet, it takes into account growth funds. So this is actually what it costs us in addition to what we're spending this year, total. We're gonna get $1,414,000 from LEARNs. We're gonna get about $940,000 for that additional 150 kids we've got this year. And so we actually come out to the good about $91,000. And as I said last week, that seems like, well, why don't we use all that up? But I know we're gonna have some additional costs for staffing next year. So that pretty much comes out close to even. And as we go through the rest of them, all the rest of them are gonna be on the other side of that even. So it's gonna cost us some additional money. And what those steps actually look like when you put them all on a schedule, I tried to color code it so you could kind of follow what happens there. What this would change is when you go across from bachelor's to bachelor's plus 15, you get a $1,000 bump going across. So at the very top of that salary schedule, when you look at it, the top numbers going across are 50,000, 51,000, 52,000, 53,000. So they go up 1,000 each one. And so that is what that $1,000 up there under BA plus 15, that's what that's supposed to signify. It's $1,000 going across each column, and then it's those individual numbers going down. So why did we start with small numbers and go bigger? Well, I was trying to hit that number, that magic number of how much money we're going to get in addition to what we're getting this year. I was trying to hit that number, but give our people some salary steps going down and keep our salary schedule intact. And I showed you last week, if we kept all these steps at $500 and $555, it was going to be way too expensive. It was going to be over $1 million in additional money that we would have to come up with from somewhere. So I said our options were kind of reduce those steps or reduce the number of steps. And this is what we came up with as a compromise between those two, was to give gradually increasing steps on the way down. So it gives some of your veterans a little bit of a win because as they get more experience, their steps are going to increase. And those people at the top who are getting a huge raise this year don't get quite as good a steps, if that makes sense. Okay, so all of the other proposals are set up just like this. And I don't know that you really needed all of these different columns, all of these different spreadsheets, the bachelor plus 15, the master's, but I wanted to show you the process that we went through and how that worked so that you had some idea of how it was put together. We weren't pulling numbers out of the air.
So with this being the lowest impact at current state, without changing anything, is that something that y'all would feel comfortable with looking at that and then adding like the loyalty deal to, which you gave us numbers to, which would allow us to sit here and say if it's being retroactive, high cost up front, but every other year is a lower impact depending on if people stay. But if someone was here for 25 years, they would be at a, 200 or 2,500 increase from what this shows. So that would reward the people that stayed in Siloam and get us closer to these numbers that we couldn't afford at a less impact.
The way that I figured that was it was a one-time bonus. I did not figure it going forward. That would change the amount of the step going forward, right? I did not figure it that way. This is paying it when they hit those mile markers only. Again, once they hit that mile marker, they got that bonus that year, and then they have to wait until they hit the next mile marker to get the next one. Because then our steps are different. If we add that into our steps, that makes our steps larger going forward. We would have to add $350 to each step going up to 5 years, and then have to add $500 to each step after that. So our steps would be incrementally larger.
Are you talking about something that would be on the stipend page versus the salary schedule? Like a stipend would be, you've been here for 5 years and you're getting X, Y, Z stipend this year. And then you've been here 10 years and you're gonna be $700 stipend for being here 10 years. Is that what you're referring to, or are you asking about a limited schedule?
I don't know.
So
My thought process was added to the step schedule of when they hit whatever that number is. That's just throwing out ideas. But say 3 years, then their step, if they've been in Siloam 3 consecutive years, they would get an added $350 to their step moving forward.
So
And then when they hit 5 years, that would be, 500. So their step, those that stay have a higher step than those that are incoming or.
So I think the way to, I understand what Terry's saying, I understand what you're saying. So I think the numbers, and I switched to that chart. I think the numbers that she put up here, that $600,000 for 23-24 would be the cost for paying that additional money to all the people that are on our rolls who have already hit 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, or would this coming year. That $600,000, if we build it into their steps though, that $600,000 doesn't go away the next year, according to what you're asking, unless they leave. So actually that $600,000 would be added to that $83,000 for the next year, because it's going to be an ongoing cost. So to answer your question, that 600, we would be looking at, if we added that on here, we would be looking at this proposal 1, we would be looking at an additional $500,000 yearly going forward. That's money that I don't know that we have, and I don't know, I don't know how to plan for that right now. Now, can we look at that? I don't mind looking at that. Can it be adjusted and maybe not give as many? Yes. I don't mind looking at that. I'm a little nervous about taking on too much this year without knowing exactly what things are going to look like this coming year, because things are changing so much. So I would be fine with looking at that. I don't know that I'm ready to recommend that we add a $600,000 cost onto any of these, because I don't see where that money's coming from.
One thing you could not do though, is you could not put it in the salary schedule itself. Because when you put in that salary schedule itself, then it goes for all employees. So I'll use myself as an example, I would be year 25 on the salary schedule, but this is only my 4th year. But if you put it in the salary schedule, then I'm gonna benefit from that loyalty bonus because it's in the schedule that everybody has access, it's paid off of. It would have to be a separate schedule or stipend, as Kelly talked about, where it was only for those people who had worked in the
In district. So it would be a separate tracking mechanism.
Did I say it right, Terry?
Yes, there's a difference between experience and years in district. I have to pull a special report to find the years in district. Like I have 20+ years in my field, but I only have 9 years experience in the district. But my salary is based on my years of experience, which comes off that salary schedule. My years in the district have nothing to do with that salary schedule.
And I'm gonna go way back and I'm gonna, we used to have one. We used to have longevity bonus. And I don't know exactly when that went away. I do know that it went through our personnel policies committee when it went away because it was a personnel policy. And so at some point in the past, there was a reason for putting it in. And at some point since I've been here or just before, there was a reason to do away with it that went through personnel policies committee and they voted. And I don't know, I honestly don't know. I don't know if that was because we did some things in the salary schedule to make up for it. Because if you remember, our salary schedule currently has a big step at year 10 and a big step at 22. And
Actually, there's a small step at 5, a bigger step at 10, another small step at 15, and then we have a triple step at 22.
so I have my presumption would be that that was in conjunction, that they made some of those changes. With this proposal, for proposal 1, I tried to make everything even going across and then a pretty steady increase going down without any big jumps or odd years, just because we were trying to get to 25. So Grant, I'm not opposed to us looking at a longevity bonus, but I don't know that that is affordable with what we're currently trying to do.
And I'm not set on that either. I'm just trying, and that's why I asked about this one, because it was the lowest impact.
Right.
But then, I mean, people that aren't here, this doesn't matter long-term. They'll be moving on to other schools, but those that we can keep trained in our culture and keep in our district, if we could do anything to offset that from where we'd like to be to what we say we can afford to do. So
Probably the smoothest thing would be what Kelly's saying and set up some kind of schedule with a stipend. And that's kind of like, that's like a bonus, a one-time bonus. Because if you do mix it into this salary schedule, then it gets really messed up. Like we're not really rewarding the teachers that are staying, which is our goal. But then we hire, like Shane, a great hire, but he gets all the benefit of that. So I appreciate that. That made sense. So I would think that maybe get through this thing this year, do what we're going to do, and keep that in the foreground and work toward that for next year as a way to see how this all shakes out. Because we still have, I think it's a real good idea, but I'm not sure we can hammer out all the details, or we might work on it on the summer and start it in the fall. I guess it doesn't matter when you started, really.
Uh,
But it has to go through the,
It would have to be a personnel policy, so it would have, if we don't do it before May 1st, then
then
it can be
next-
proposed, it can be proposed for the following year at any time. For it to go into effect during the middle of the year, then everybody has to vote on it, all of them. And that law may have changed slightly, actually. But,
Well, they still vote on it.
well, for us, historically, for us to do a personnel policy change in the middle of the year after May 1st, the board has to propose it, and it has to go to a vote of the entire staff that's affected. And then the board can automatically vote for it for the following year, but for it to go into effect in the middle of the year.
Okay, I'm with you. Yeah.
It also, this may change too, but it also carries a caveat of if you do change that, then that changes everybody's contract, and everybody has 30 days to sign their new contract, or they're out of their contract and they can go to another district.
Yeah,
If they
that's
chose
right.
to, we wouldn't have anything to hold.
And some of those things may be changing with the Lions Law. But
I have a comment,
yes, sir.
just out of respect to my fellow board member, because I know how much everyone has worked on this. And I know how people play on words. So I say that because when we use the terminology lowest impact, I know what Grant means by it. But I want to say that, looking forward to our staff, we're looking at more than lowest impact.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, I'm not negating what I understand fully what Grant's saying. But again, I know how people play on words, and in respect to him, I don't want people to say, well, they're just doing the bare minimum just to
No.
get by. That's not what we're saying. I know that's not what Grant means either. Correct?
Correct. And so I did not even give it to you today, but last Thursday, I gave you what the lowest impact was.
Right, right.
The bare minimum
Yep.
is to raise everybody to 50 as a base and to make sure that everybody gets $2,000 raise. We're doing more than that.
Right.
Actually, we're doing quite a bit more than that with any
Right.
of these proposals.
Right.
This one is the lowest impact to our budget of the 5 that I gave you. So yes, that's correct. And I want to reiterate what Terry said. Most districts I anticipate across the state are going to do that bare minimum. We're going to do more than the bare minimum. Most districts are going to struggle to have a salary schedule in place for next year. We are proposing to have a salary schedule in place for next year. The goal perhaps of part of this from the LEARNS Act was to equalize or to provide equity for hiring brand new teachers across the state. And it's absolutely going to do that because West Fork, Decatur, Gentry, Siloam Springs are probably all going to have $50,000 as a base salary, as well as DeWitt, Stuttgart, West Memphis, Greene County Tech, and anybody else that you can name in the state. All of us basically are going to have an equal starting salary, so it gives all school districts an equitable chance at hiring brand new teachers out of college. The only school districts who are going to be above that are going to be those who were already at $50,000, and the state's going to give them $2,000 per teacher to give them all a raise for $2,000. And so they're going to be slightly above us. But everybody's going to be pretty much on an equal playing field for brand new teachers. The only differentiating factors among districts past that is going to be, do they have a salary schedule in place to reward teachers who have more experience, or do they not? And there's going to be a whole lot of school districts that struggle to put much of a salary schedule together because they don't have the benefit of already having a salary schedule that goes above 50,000 and growth money that we have. So we have a unique opportunity to set ourselves apart a little bit.
So with all that said, is there risk of us getting some experienced teachers that would fall higher on this pay scale than us thinking entry level? And
So-
causing the district,
We have that opportunity every year as people leave us, and our mantra has always been to hire the best qualified person for the job. Sometimes that is a brand new teacher, sometimes that is a teacher with 20 years experience. In the end, it has not ever mattered that much from year to year. Could that change this year with everybody being on a level playing field? Perhaps, but I am not anticipating the level of turnover that we've had the last couple. So hopefully that helps. All right, would you all like to go through any of the other?
Before we move on, I'll just make
Okay.
just a comment that I think is important, and I think we've said it before. I know I said it last week, and you've said it already too, but we're in a great position because we have the growth funding and we have the extra funds to even be sitting here talking about this, whereas a lot of districts, you know, what you said, they're just gonna be lucky to even make it work. So I think it's important that, and kind of like what Chris said, that we're here and we're doing our work and doing what we think is best for all the teachers, and we're trying to get there. You know, we're working hard at this, so I think we're well on the right track, and I appreciate all the time that you put into it, and Terry trying to help us get there. So I just thought I'd say that. Now you can go on to your stuff.
Well, and I'm going to add on to that. The good news is every teacher is going to get a $2,000 pay raise from what they made this year. And I made this statement to the PPC and a couple of buildings. I made the statement that's the biggest raise we've ever given. That was not true, because I actually gave a caveat every time I said that I need to go back and make sure. In early 2000s, right after Lakeview court case, the state of Arkansas had a tremendous amount of money, a great influx of money into education over about a 3-year span. And we had 2 years within that span that we gave a little bit more than a $2,000 raise. So a $2,000 raise has not been given since then in this district. And so $2,000 is a significant amount of money. And so everybody in the district, by law, all the certified teachers are going to get a $2,000 raise. And almost everyone is going to get more than that if we adopt one of these salary schedules. Okay. That's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, just something else, as I've talked with my colleagues here with the new law. A lot of school districts are no longer paying for extended contracts. So whereas we are proposing to keep paying those additional days to teachers that work 200 days, other districts are not. They no longer recognize indexes, extended contracts, anything. They are simply doing what the law says they have to do. So you might have a person that works 205 days on the same, getting the same pay as somebody who works 190 days. That's what I'm hearing here at this conference, how they're dealing with that in Southern Arkansas. So I thought that was interesting, that we would like to continue to recognize the extended contracts and stuff with the new salary schedule.
On to number 2.
I'm going to move there. I'm not going to go through all of it as much as I did that one. I'm going to go to the step schedule. So the difference between number 1 and number 2, the steps have increased. We did this just to show if we increase those steps down through there, the bottom line is going to increase. And so when you go to the first page, the salary schedule, that one would cost us $179,000 above the new money that we believe we're gonna get. Now, I also want to make if we adopt one of these salary schedules, I do not anticipate that that's the way it's going to look forever. If we adopt one that has a small step at the beginning, the first few years, then gradually increases, I would imagine as we go forward that as we start having the ability to give raises in future years, that we're going to put some money on the front end, on the top end, so that we can separate ourselves from other districts at the $50,000. But I would also anticipate that we start building those steps down, and we would start top to bottom to try to equalize those steps. That would be my goal going forward. But that also would go through PPC and you all before any of that happened, and that would happen on a yearly basis in the spring if we're able to give a raise for the next year. And that's kind of the same thing we've been doing. I know since I've been assistant superintendent and superintendent, we have tried to give money. When we had money for raises, we put it on the top end, on the base salary, because that flushes all the way through the salary schedule. And then on at least one occasion since Terry's been here, maybe twice, we have actually put money in the steps as well to try to increase those gaps in between. Correct, Terry?
Correct.
So that would be my proposal as we go forward in trying to build back that salary schedule to have a little bit more consistent steps. Any questions on proposal 1 or 2?
We were talking about stipend deal a minute ago. Is that figured into this? How's this, all the stipends
Okay, so
or not?
stipends are something that's a static number. So we give this is not accurate, but we might give a $500 stipend for being a student council sponsor. That's a static number, and it's in our personnel policies, so it doesn't change with any of this. What does change is we have certain people who work more than 190 days. So we get a daily rate of pay based on the salary schedule, and then we pay them that daily rate of pay for those extra 10 days or whatever they work.
That's what,
And so we would continue doing that. If a day for a teacher is worth $300 right now, and under the LEARNS Act it's worth $400, then those extra days should be worth $400 as well. And kind of the same sentiment for administrators, coaches, anybody that is paid on an index. An index is simply a multiplier. It's not a static number, it's a multiplier off the salary schedule. So if a certain position, again, this may not be accurate, and it's not accurate, but it's for simplicity's sake. If the high school principal is on an index so that he makes 2 times what a teacher makes, if it's worth 2 times what the teacher makes this year, it should be worth 2 times what the teacher makes next year as well. So it would increase as well. It's not a static number, if that makes sense.
but that's not reflected in.
All of that is reflected in her final number.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
It is reflected, okay.
Yes. We do not get
That's where
money.
I was- that's
We do
where-
not get additional money from the state for those factors, but it is factored into that final number.
Okay.
Correct, Terry?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to go to number 3. I'm going to go to the step schedule and show you what's different. In this one, across the top, instead of going $1,000 for each column across, this matches what we currently do, $11.50 from here to here, $11.50 from here to here, $11.50 to there, $11.50 to there. And then our current salary schedule has a big jump for doctorate at $17.50. So we kept those going across and then came up with numbers going down. I think this is mostly $3.50 for bachelors and $4.10 for masters. And I'm not sure honestly, we were trying to put some numbers on paper to give you an idea of if you change a few things, this is what it ends up showing you. I don't know that I'm proposing any of these specifically, but if there's something that you wanted us to look at in between or playing with something, we can always do that. And so this one, end result, is a net cost, additional cost to the district of $216,000. I'm going to go to proposal 4, and I'm going to show you where I think we messed up. I messed up really because, but if you look at number 4, after I looked at this, there's part of this one that doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure why we would make master's steps of $475 down here. That's bigger than master's plus 15 steps right next to it. That doesn't make sense to me. So I would want to fix that. And an easy fix would be probably making the master's column all $425 instead of.
You don't have an extra number 4 somewhere?
I do.
Did not give you 4s.
So that's, I noticed that this morning as I was printing it out, that didn't make sense to me. And so that, if it was 425 all the way down that column instead of being split, that would probably work out about the same. It'd be close at least. And actually, I can make that change. So just to show you how it works, on the salary schedule, this one currently would cost us, what's that say, $90,000
$90,000.
additional. And so if I go into the masters and I change those steps to 425, then it would cost us $130,000. I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum. I'm going to go to the number 5 revised.
5.
It's the last one. This one has it keeps at year 10 and 22 the big steps that we currently have in our salary schedule. And it gradually increases going across. If you see the numbers at the top of the column, 1150, 1150, then 1250, 1350, 1500. So it gradually gives more money going across, and it starts at a little bit bigger numbers on the top end and works its way down to bigger numbers at the bottom end. This one would be quite expensive. If you go to the salary schedule page, that one would cost us an extra $982,000. So, okay, so we've given you all that information. Again, whatever salary schedule we adopt that's beyond that basic required by law is a good thing for us, and it sets us apart from a lot of districts. I think there's a lot of unknowns heading into this next year. And for me, there's a lot of unknowns 3 years from now. Because the education freedom accounts are something brand new. And they are going to give all of our students 3 years from now the opportunity to take their money and take the money that we would have gotten if they were in school here and take it to a private school or be reimbursed it for homeschool. So if that part of the law stays intact as it is and it's fully funded 3 years from now, all of our kids have options. That makes me nervous.
Let me stop you there. So that doesn't start for 3 years?
It's progressively implemented over the next 3 years. 3 years are when all students have that opportunity. Okay, so this coming year, I'm going to say this wrong, but this coming year, it might be students who have disabilities or IEP, and then at some point, students who are in D or F schools, but then 3 years from now, it's all students. So I'm not as worried on the first and second years. It's that third year that has me a little concerned. So with the unknown going into this coming year, and then the big unknown looming out there 3 years from now, I don't want to get us as a district into something that gets us in trouble later. So I've given you 5 proposals. I feel most comfortable with the first proposal. And I think that is somewhat aggressive because I think in the end, it's going to be using up every additional dollar that we know we're going to get and putting it into salaries. The others were just to give you a sense of what changing some things might mean. I am open to tweaking whatever. My suggestion would be that we look at that first proposal, original one, number 1, and that we look at it, and if we want to make some tweaks to it, I'm open to that. My proposal for longevity, I am open to that. I think it would scare me to start that on top of this right now. I would ask that we give a year and ask our PPCs to look at that and see if that's where they want to allocate money. Because at some point, whatever money we put into the longevity piece comes from a raise, perhaps. Because it is the same pot of money, if that makes sense. So I'm looking for some direction from you all, I guess.
So this is let's just work off proposal 1. So this is monies for sure this year coming for the next school year.
That's what we believe.
Pretty close.
Yes.
Pretty close.
To the
Okay.
best of our knowledge.
Right.
Yes.
Right. All right. So we get through, we're sitting here next year at this time and let's say we don't have any growth funds. So that's about $1 million. So that goes from 100, so that's $900,000, right? That we would have to come up with somewhere.
Well, theoretically, I'm under the assumption we're not going to lose students.
Right.
So this growth money, it's growth money this year. For next year, we will get paid on those students because they came this year.
Okay, I'm with you.
So that 940,000, I've got it listed as additional ADM/growth. Next year's budget, it will actually be money we're counting on, and it's money we're counting on going forward unless we lose students. And if we start losing students, then we got other problems.
So we should get the 940 for 2 years.
We should get it from now on, as long as we don't go below our current number of students.
But if we do go below, then we would get declining enrollment funds bail you out because you didn't expect to lose students like we did a couple of years ago.
So in the last 22 years, I've been here 22 years. In the last 22 years, we've had 1 year where we really didn't grow. We ended up coming in a little bit lower than the previous year, just barely. And then we had the COVID year where we dropped about 200 kids. That's the only year that we've really lost kids. So
Well, and we were projected to get declining enrollment funds, and then we had so many enrolled that it flipped, and we actually got growth coming into the 22-23.
Yes. Yes. So I don't anticipate that we're going to lose students. Now, 3 years from now, I don't know what that's going to look like when the education freedom accounts
Right.
truly come in.
Right.
But if we keep adding subdivisions and houses, that's not a major concern for me at this point. I don't see that having that big of an effect on us. Grant, you were going to say something.
No, I just said earlier, when you said if we, what scares us, we lose a lot of kids due to private school or whatever, well, we won't need as many teachers either. So
True. Yes,
that will
true.
staff. So that would offset that, some of that fear
Yes.
down the road.
Yes.
But you wouldn't know that at the time you're hiring.
Now,
Since we're-
districts that are losing students are usually about a year behind in trying to figure out how to deal with it with teachers. So if you lose 200 this year, it's affecting your funding for next year, and you're probably not going to know that in time to reduce staff until the following year, but
Is
we've
that
not
why
had
they-
that problem.
Is that why they give you the decline?
Yes, yes,
To
And it-
offset the next year?
yes,
They-
and it's half of what you would get normally for a student.
Well, what are you guys feeling? We're not taking official action on this today, but Mr. Wiggins is wanting a nod in a direction. I'm okay with proposal one.
Can we look at that nurses tab for just a second?
Yes,
If we went with your proposed number one, am I correct in assuming that that would cost us an additional 102,000, correct?
the nurses,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If we added them into this salary
Yes.
schedule. Okay. If you go 2 columns to the left, is that giving them, if we added, is that giving them a 4% increase if we do that?
that 34,000 number,
Yes, sir.
yes. And the 4%, we haven't put this out officially.
Okay, that's where I was going.
But
Okay.
the classified, as we were looking at the classified and the amount of money that we have, we think we can increase everybody's salary in classified by about 4% and then do better than that in some specific areas. And the ones we were focused on to begin with were bus drivers, cafeteria staff, and paras, because those are the ones we routinely have open positions in right now that we can't fill. And so we were going to give 4% across the board, hopefully, and then target some additional monies into those 3 categories. And so that's where that 4% number came from.
Okay, okay.
And then you were thinking leave nurses in the classified category.
I'm open to discussions on it.
But for this, that's what they would stay class. So
If we move them to certified, that 102,000 comes from the pot. So it's either coming
coming from something.
with here, or it's coming out of that 500 to 600,000 we're going to spend on classified. And it doesn't really matter where it comes from. It's just got to be figured in there somewhere.
And would nurses add to your 4th consideration? You named the 3. Would nurses fall as number 4 to increase salaries? Or you're just saying you're recommending only the 4%?
Currently, we were planning on recommending a 4% increase there
So,
because they had a pretty good raise last year to get them competitive with local school districts.
so if I'm figuring this right with what Chris said, this is just the nurses.
That's just nurses standalone.
All right, and we have 7.
We actually have 8,
Okay.
but
Let's refigure.
our nurse director is already paid off of a certified salary schedule because she's on a separate. So it's actually 7 of them that are figured into that.
Well, now we're back to 7. That's almost $5,000 per.
More than that. Oh, no, the 34,000,
At the
yes.
34 at 4%, that's rough.
Now, that's salary and benefits. Understand that that's salary and benefits.
Okay. So what's, and benefits is what percent?
About 25%.
25%, right?
25%.
So, in researching this stuff, is every district has like a custodian schedule and
Yes.
maintenance, and,
Yes.
and that we have the same thing.
Yes.
It's just not.
We have 26 salary schedules in classified. All the way from nurses to cafeteria workers to cafeteria managers to maintenance advanced, bus drivers, bus aides, custodian,
Bus drivers,
HR person, administrative assistants. Anyway, we have a bunch, 26. So where we have one salary schedule for certified with 6 columns, we have 26 individual columns for classified, 26 different job descriptions with separate pay rates. And that incorporates, there's about 300 people that fall under those somewhere.
What were the three again that you said the focus would be on to?
Bus drivers, cafeteria, and classroom aides.
And you said that's because they're
We
routinely,
have
it's been
had-
routinely the,
We have had open positions that we
Yeah.
have had a hard time filling all year.
In all 3 categories.
Yes.
And 2 of the 3, we have a hard time competing just with regular McDonald's per hour. When you look at the per hour rate. Cafeteria workers and paraprofessionals. We need to get competitive. We lose people to those type jobs.
so the 4% will help us do that?
Well, no,
Is that what we're saying?
we're gonna
Oh,
focus
that-
more than 4%
Right,
in
that's
those
right.
areas to
Yes.
get us to where we're competitive a little bit with, so that we're not losing them to McDonald's.
So on those, we're off per hour rate, we're low,
Yes,
competing, plus it's not a full-time job, year round. So
Correct.
Therefore,
But I will tell you, so I'll say this, pairs not, cafeteria workers, our cafeteria workers can work year round if they choose to. Most of our employees are in a situation where they don't, not all, but they don't wanna work in the summers, but they would still like to have a living wage for when they are working. Right. You know? And so we know we need to do some things there.
And when we look at changing classified salaries, we always compare the beginning hourly rate and our ending hourly rate. We take it down to the hour so that we can see what kind of an impact this has on someone's hourly salary. Because all of these folks are eligible for overtime, and so that makes a huge difference. And so, just so you know, you can't just look at it at the flat dollar salary, you have to take it down to their hourly salary. And that's how we compare district to district.
with classified staff, historically, we've tried to focus on 1 or 2 groups a year to try to put information together to see how competitive we are with other districts around us, and then with other industries, if we're talking about some of our positions. And tried to, if we had the ability to give raises in that particular year, try to address those 1 or 2 and kind of shuffle through all of our different positions. And so we've done that consistently over the last, I know, at least 10 years, and tried to take 1 or 2 a year to refocus on and make sure that we're competitive. Last year, it just so happened that nurses was one of those.
before all this came up, we had already started doing food service, bus driver research, paraprofessional research. We knew that was gonna be through. And then Terry had, maintenance and custodial on her mind now to try to see if we could address those positions as well.
Do you fall under the bus driver?
I'm sorry.
Do you fall under the bus driver?
No, I'm actually
In
saving the district money. I still do my job and I don't get paid to drive the bus.
Oh, my. Well, what do you guys think? We need to give Jody some direction. Well, I guess I'll say it again, that I like the proposal one, but because we are making effort to go beyond what are now and still stay within a structure of not stretching ourselves too far out there in case there's an unknown that we haven't foreseen for the following year. That's the thing, kind of, when you get into all this, when you start messing with those the steps of step raises, you know, it really gets tough because you want to give as much as you can, but then you know, once it's there, it's there. It's pretty hard to take it back, and who knows what it's going to be 3 years, 5 years from now. So I like number one.
Support moving forward, number one.
Audra's one.
I missed 1 and 2. Can you guys repeat?
Oh, my.
So I don't know that I'm asking you for a vote, but I would like head nods, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
If,
That's the head nod.
if we move forward with proposing number one Thursday night, for our certified, and then agree to tackle classified in the coming weeks, can you all support, do you want me to propose something similar to number one on Thursday night for you all to vote on?
That's where I'm at. And while they're thinking on that, you know, it might not, I think maybe, this has been a real healthy discussion, that maybe we ought to have a work session on the certified deal, or the classified. Because, you know, through the discussion, there's been all kinds of things come up that kind of triggers other questions.
So I'm going to, I don't know that I praise my people very, very well or very often, but I'm going to say to you all, Terry has done an amazing job putting this together for me to be able to present to you, okay? Even as messy as this might look and as complicated, the classified is going to be even more so.
Okay.
Because there's 26 different salary schedules. So putting that together in a meaningful and presentable way would be a challenge, but I don't mind having that work session and we can talk through some of that if that's what you all choose to do.
Trust me, I have one of those lovely, worksheets for every one of them.
Well, I think it might be good just to get together and kind of like what we've done, and maybe, you know, maybe not have 5 proposals and 10 proposals, but at least, I think,
Go through the numbers.
go through the numbers
Okay.
at a work session, so, you know, we need to, that's our job as board members. We need to invest time and where the money's going, take care of the taxpayers' monies, and understand where the money's going.
And I think it's important that we are giving a feel to our classified staff that they are very important to us as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So y'all be on board with doing one later, whenever, sometime this summer, I guess.
I would want to do it here in the next few weeks because
No,
we want to send contracts out to certified soon after May 1st, and then send contracts out to classified soon after that. So it would be fairly quickly. I just
Okay.
wanted to get, we've got that May 1st deadline for this one.
We've got
So
to get this done.
I did not mention this to you guys, but we have 2 members of our personnel policies, our certified personnel policies here today.
I saw them back there.
So Doug and Tamara, Kelly suggested that we invite them, and I was supposed to do that last Friday and forgot. Sorry. Kelly reminded me again this morning. So Doug and Tamara are here just kind of hear the discussion today, and they are on the Personnel Policy Committee for certified. And if we did something for classified like that, I would want to invite a couple of them in as well, just to hear the conversation.
And we do have the leniency in that classified 26 tabs, whatever. Do we have the leniency to do different?
Yes.
Okay, you know where I'm going
So,
with that.
yes,
Okay.
so I will tell you what we've done historically. This year's different because we've been told we have to do something with
Yeah.
certified, and
Yeah.
they're giving us money for it. But historically, when we've had a year where we had, let's say we figured up that we had $1 million that we could put towards salaries for the following year, we would take it as a whole, certified and classified, and try to figure a base percentage that we could increase and try to do it kind of uniformly across. That way everybody, there was some equity to it. So it might be 1.75% this year. And we try to do it in whole numbers. So with a certified base, we might add $1,000 to it. And if our base was 40 and now we're adding $1,000 to it, that's 1/40th. And when you get that percentage, that's the percentage we tried to raise the classified across the board. And then we might focus on 1 or 2 and do a little extra, like I said, based on research. So historically, that's the way we've done it. This year's different because we don't have that big pot of money that we can split equitable. We have a pot of money from the state for the LEARNs that can only go toward certified teachers. And then we have to figure out what to do with salary schedule on top of that. Otherwise, we're going to be like a lot of districts and just do the base minimum. So in having to do that, we figured out the other day, the amount of money that we're going to spend if we do this first proposal, it's going to be about 8.5% for certified across the board if you just average it out, okay? So some would get a lot more than that. That first-year teacher, second-year teacher is going to get a lot more than 8.5%. That veteran teacher is going to get a lot less.
Yeah.
And so when we took the other pot of money that we kind of have in our mindset is going to go toward classified, we didn't have enough to do 8.5% across the board. We might could get to 7%, but we want to focus on some specific ones. Did she make a bad face when I said that?
Well, not bad, but
Okay, that might not be accurate,
that's all right.
but what we did, those 3 that we need to really pay attention to, we think we can do 4% and then bump those 3 pretty good to get us competitive there. So if that gives
It
you.
does. I really just was curious that there was some fluidity, where we
Yes.
could, okay, all right.
And you don't have to do anything. Some districts are not doing anything for classified.
Which would be not a good solution for us.
Yeah.
No.
No,
No.
no, I don't think any of us
I
want
wasn't
that.
doing that to suggest that's the right way to go. It's saying, again, we are fortunate enough that we get to extend this opportunity to our classified staff as well as our certified staff. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any sense of consensus for proposal one.
If, you may have stated this, so just forgive me with everything going. On proposal one, if we moved nurses over, then we're gonna dig into that 91,000 that is left.
We're either gonna dig in, it depends on how you think about it. Currently, they're in the classified group.
Right,
So if we say that we're gonna pay them off of here and we're gonna figure it in here, yeah, it's gonna take us slightly to the positive, to the other side here. If we figure it in the classified group, then it's taken off of that 500,000 or 600,000 that we think we have to play with over there.
right,
It's affecting the overall.
yeah.
It's gonna affect the overall by $100,000 either way.
I don't either, Siri.
I will say this. I don't know if it's right or wrong. To my knowledge, none of the big four have their nurses on certified pay. To my knowledge. And that was one group that we compared to last year when we were trying to give them a raise.
Mhm.
A fear, whether it's right or wrong, is if we take one group that's currently classified, and I'm not saying they should be classified, I don't know whether that's right or wrong. But if we take one group from classified and say, we're gonna do something for them to put them on the level of our certified teachers, and we're gonna put them above what some of the other big districts are doing currently, I'm not sure how some of those other 26 groups are going to respond. If that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
So I think the reason we're talking about nurses is because there was a bill before the legislature this year to do something differently. It did not pass because it did not get funding.
I think COVID has.
Absolutely.
You know,
And I
it's
don't
what
want to
they-
diminish the
what
impact
they
that our
gotta
nurses
do.
have or the importance that they have for our schools. They absolutely are important.
Well, we have all the groups represented in here, pretty much, right?
Well, this is all the certified people.
So, but all the different, I mean, what's the feelings on that? You have operations, you know, is that gonna be a problem separating out one group from the other? Or do you not want to answer that right now? And that's fine too. I don't
Here's
want
what
to.
I
Get it, yeah.
Here's what I look at. So there are some districts, there are districts who pay their nurses off salary. But one thing you gotta think about is we have more nurses in our district than the state says, far more than the minimum. Some of the districts that are paying off of the certified salary have the minimum number. And we're way above them. Now, I'm not saying they're not needed, and they're not, and our nurses do a fantastic job, and I fought hard last year to make sure that we got them a raise, because I saw what they did during COVID on a daily basis. It's hard to single out a group of 7 and give them 20% of the money you have to give the rest of the 300 a raise. You're gonna give 20% to 7 people. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I think they do deserve it. But the reality of it is, when it comes to dollars and cents, how do you do that? When you just gave them a significant raise the year before. And we're gonna probably give another, no matter what we're doing, we're gonna give another kid raise this year. Even if, whether we put them on salary scale or not, we're probably gonna give them another 4%. Do I think they deserve it? Absolutely. There's not a single person that works for us that doesn't deserve that. But, I'm looking at the group as a whole.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, it's just, I've learned a long time ago, as
Well,
y'all seen in here.
we got bus drivers that start at 16. Tell me if I'm wrong, Terry, just over $16 an hour. We've got food service workers that start at $11 an hour. If you're asking me where our focus needs to be, our paras are at that same 11 something an hour or 12, right in that range as well. I mean, I gotta get them close to the poverty level. In my mind, if I'm over operations, if you're looking at where my priority is, I have an employee that's worked for us for 22 years, one of our best employees in the district, will never go anywhere, retire here, doesn't wanna go anywhere. She makes $16 an hour. She's below the poverty level and she's worked in a job for 22 years. Okay, so I gotta get them, that's where my focus is, and it doesn't mean I don't think those other 7 people are important, because Josh, I hope they know I do, because this is gonna be heard. I think the world of them, done a fantastic job, but there's only so much money. We gotta make the best, you guys will have to make the best decision you can for everybody involved.
And I just looked at the projections of a 4% increase for the nurses. And if they have a bachelor's degree, they will get more than a $2,000 raise, like our teachers.
That's true. That's a good point.
And then Jody, you said some districts are doing the minimum so that they can work through it next year, right, on what they're gonna do moving forward. Our option 1 is better than the minimum.
Absolutely.
Is it still something, we commit to this, but we continue to look at what we can do?
Well, I think we look at it every year, but we only get one shot each year, because we have to do it this time of year before May 1st that affects the entire year next year. And so changing it mid-year is a little bit different circumstances. So I think we look at it every year. But to your point, if you want to go to proposal 1, the 3rd page. I don't know where my proposal 1 went. That's 2. That is 1. The 3rd page is the bachelor's column. So to your point, where this would separate us from those who are doing the bare minimum, everybody would be the same down to there. Everybody's going to get a $50,000 raise in the district, okay? Or no, that's not right. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back up to the top. Everybody's going to get a $6,750 raise across, or wherever they're at. Now, some districts, their base salary is $36,000. So in some districts, a 0-year teacher is going to get a $14,000 raise, okay? But everybody's going to be equal here. A lot of districts, if they are just incorporating what's required by the law, they're going to look like this over here, where it goes 50,000 for a long period of time, if not all the way down, okay? So every number above 50,000 right here is going to be bigger than a lot of districts, most districts. And then every number we add in steps is additional to that. So where ours comes down to where it's going to be close to what other districts are giving everybody is down here at some point where we get around $2,000, because $2,000 is all that's required to be given to everybody else, a raise of $2,000. And so all these other numbers are more than that, all those other years. And so for every column, it looks like that, whether it's masters plus 15, masters plus 30. So almost all of our people will be getting more, in some cases, quite a bit more than what is required. Does that make sense?
And the LEARN Act says we no longer have to recognize difference in education. They have taken that away.
Yes. Really?
Any teacher, no matter what level of education they have, must be paid $50,000, period.
So many districts are going to do away with their across steps or greatly reduce them. So it might just be a bachelor's and a master's.
There are also, if they're 36, if they're low end, on 25, I can name one district. We talked about the WIT a lot, I hope you WIT stuff. Their starting teacher makes 36. If you have a doctorate with 25 years experience, that makes 48. So everybody in the district next year at the WIT is going to make $50,000. That 25-year teacher with a doctorate and a first year right out of college teacher is going to make the exact same amount, and they have no money to give any steps or any education ratings.
So
They'll have one salary for every teacher, and there are lots of districts that are doing that in the state. Because they don't have any growth money, and they don't have any tax base.
Grant, you look perplexed.
Okay, never mind. I found it.
Okay.
She found it.
Okay. This is unconventional, but I'm going to ask Doug or Tamara if they have any comments, if that's okay with the board.
I'm good with that. I was thinking of that earlier.
I don't have anything necessarily, I mean, I recognize that it's a tough position to be in, to be thinking about it in general, but, you know, as a teacher, I recognize that, regardless of where I am, I'm getting a raise, so, you know, that's a plus. I, honestly, I don't like hearing the districts that are gonna be spent all at 50,000, so I'm happy that we're able to consider something else.
Okay.
I'll just second that. I feel like I'm on information overload a little bit.
Tamara's a math teacher, and so is Doug. So they're on information overload, and they're math teachers.
So now you know how we feel. Trying to nail it down and do the right thing.
So Jody, would eliminating any of ours, these columns, would that benefit in a way?
It could. It complicates things a little bit more because since we were already given pretty good steps across, 1150 for the next column, if we eliminate them all together, then I get a little bit,
No, I didn't say altogether.
if we eliminate a column,
Okay,
what it does is in our existing salary schedule, going from 1 to 2, going from the first column to the third column is a $2,200 jump. So as I try to put it in there and eliminate a column or two, there's enough big jumps in our existing salary schedule that we start running into some issues down here with making sure it's a $2,000 raise. So then I have to start increasing steps to make sure that this number right here, that number right there ends up with the step over here to be 2,000. So that was part of playing with the numbers. When we reduced the column,
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
when we reduced the columns from 1150, 1150, 1150, 1750 to 1,000, that meant I had to build in bigger numbers at the bottom to make sure we gave everybody a $2,000 raise. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Anything you do at the top washes through. So these numbers going across were 1150, 1150, 1150, 1150, and 1750. So in building this salary schedule, we reduced those so that the overall cost could be within the parameters we were trying to set. But when we reduced that, it means that some of these steps at the bottom had to be bigger so that these people down in here got a raise of at least $2,000 because we were eliminating some of the money they were getting on the top end. So if I eliminate bachelor plus 15 altogether, the people who were falling in that were getting $1,000 for it. So I got to make that up somewhere for them down the line. If they were only getting $2,000 raise somewhere in the salary schedule, if that makes any sense. So I got to build that money back into a step somewhere. And we can look at doing that. I'm not opposed to that.
Does the same thing happen if you eliminate the doctorate level?
It does because we only have 4,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
But Terry, I'm going to use you for an example, if that's okay. So Terry is on the doctorate level. And even though Terry's not a certified person, but if Terry was certified, and we have some, she would fall somewhere down there around 20 years. And so I'm going to go someplace. So this is our doctorate column, and let's say she falls currently there. She's got 20 years and a doctorate. If we eliminated doctorate, I still have to give her 2,000 more than that next year to meet the law. So I have to give her that amount. So wherever she falls on the new salary schedule, if there's no doctorate column, she's going to be on the master's plus 30 at the very least. Then master's plus 30 at 20 years has to be at least that amount.
They have to absorb that.
Right.
That column has to.
That
absorb
column has to absorb
Okay,
and
now I
make up for
follow.
that difference.
Okay, and no offense to Terry at all, but what teachers do we have that are at a doctorate level?
I know we have one administrator in the room. I know we have
Yes,
Terry
yes.
and high school principal and middle school teacher. And middle school principal. So maybe we have 5. Terry just went away. Actually, Terry is not certified, so she doesn't count in this.
Okay.
So that's 4 certified people. Now,
Okay, but you said the Learns Act doesn't mandate that we have to do that.
it does
right?
not. We can
That's just another-
absolutely eliminate doctorate level. We can eliminate any of those levels. However, the Learns Act does say that whatever salary they got this year, they got to make 2,000 more next year. So what we were trying to do, instead of grandfathering somebody in, was trying to make wherever they fall, make sure that it's $2,000 more than what their contract was this year. So if we start eliminating those, wherever they fall, it's moving to a different place now. And so we got to kind of build it into that other column. Or you grandfather them in.
I think you would keep bachelor, master, and doctorate. It's those other ones in between I don't understand.
Well,
Plus.
so where they come from, we're in the education business, and we're trying to reward our employees who are trying to continue their education. That's where those steps came from, is because that is our business.
And so that figures into, there's been some discussion on whether we should pay people to go back and get a further degree. That's kind of built into this. So when they get 15 years, they're getting extra money.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Instead of paying their tuition, or instead of, we're paying them on the back end for accomplishing something. So if they get that 15 hours, that's 5 classes. They get that 15 hours, then they move to a different level, and they're getting additional pay, not just this year, but they're getting additional pay for the rest of their career.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And that, because if you don't have that, you don't have a way to encourage people to go ahead and get more education, because it's just too expensive. You know, a master's degree right now costs easy $10,000 if you go to the cheapest place in the state to do it, and it could be as much as $25,000 in some schools in the state. So it takes you a long time just in that step rate to recover that, you know, so. You know,
And that's
So-
where I was, I had thrown out there paying tuition.
Right.
And, when we're looking at proposal 1, I definitely want to still look at some of those other things we've talked about, and you know, forget about those
Right.
if we're going that route or something else, but, you know, I wondered about what that was.
So that is a way to reward our people for getting, or really pay them on the back end for doing that additional work. And if you look at those two columns, let's say we wanted to eliminate masters plus 15 and masters plus 30. I don't know how many people that is. I can find it in just a second. But all of those peoples that, all of the people that would fall in those two columns would revert back to a master's level. And so then, to be able to make sure that they're making $2,000 more, I got to change that master's column to get a whole lot closer to those over there. I got to change the steps to incorporate enough money that they're making at least $2,000 more. And so that becomes, if you're doing that to make sure that they don't lose money on that $2,000 raise, then you're actually giving all the people with just the masters, and I don't say that lightly, masters is important, but you're giving the people with just a masters the same bump that you're giving those people that had additional.
And I'm gonna talk out of ignorance, so no one hold this against me. But if we're doing the plus 15, plus 30, we are paying for further education, but no further degree, right?
Well, the idea is that they're working
Versus-
towards something, yes.
They're working
Or a
towards it.
certification, could be a I'll use myself, I'm in the masters plus 30. Because I chose, with my superintendent stuff, I chose not to go the doctorate route. I chose to go the certification route. So I took the classes necessary and then took the test versus going and doing the doctorate degree, that route.
I also follow Masters plus 30, but I got a specialist degree because I opted to go the degree route. And we follow the same thing, but it's both, we have both like the same certification.
So that's perfect. Then would you prefer having these steps or having your tuition reimbursed as you went through that?
I will answer that. I'll
I
on,
can answer that. I can answer it.
on the front end,
Steph, it's an ongoing deal.
Well, I want all answers, so hold on.
One
So-
at a time.
so on the front end, it would have been nice to have the tuition because I was struggling when I was getting my master's degree. On the back end, it's far better financially to have an ongoing salary increase on a yearly basis for the next 25 years and for retirement.
That goes towards retirement.
Yeah.
Tuition does not.
That's
It
a
depends on
big
where you
deal.
are in your career, how many more years you have to work. There are programs out there that have nothing to do with school districts, that have some federal level, public service loan forgiveness, that if we educate our people about, they can work
Right.
120 months in a school district and they can have certain types of loans forgiven. So we educate our people on those things.
Right.
So if I'm early in my career and I'm advancing across, I have that opportunity. There are other programs where people can be reimbursed for tuition for high need areas, so there's lots of different opportunities out there, statewide and federally as well, that, like, when people call me and they're like, hey, I wanna go back to school, I want to get this, what are my options? I send them these things to say, okay, here are programs you can look into. Here are ways that you can be reimbursed already outside of our district for certain things, not all. So on the front end, like I'm with Mr. Wiggins, it would have been great. I mean, just on camera for everybody, I would love to not take out some funds to further my career. I did. Would it have been nice not to do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. However, that was a choice I made. I know people who make the opposite choice. Who said, I'm not going back to school because I refuse to take a student loan out. And that's fine too. I 100% respect that. That's the very individual choices. But I will say, if you were, how many more years you have in it, I would prefer to move over on the salary schedule. I think in the long run, that's more beneficial to me.
And there's already a program in the state every teacher qualifies for. It is the top program, and it'll pay us for 2 classes a year plus the and the state reimburses that. You pay it up front, but they give it back to you. They write checks every summer all you gotta do is apply.
I sign paperwork on a weekly basis for loan forgiveness and for reimbursement.
I'm just curious, just because, I mean.
Yep. And we
I talk
have,
about this all the time with employees, because
Right.
they want cash or extra vacation day, you know, and it's,
we have recruiters coming in occasionally from ASU's one that has happened multiple times. They have sent a recruiter, they have online master's classes, everything's online. And they will come in, and the lady that I'm thinking of, she will lead her presentation with, don't let money hold you back, because I'm going to give you the solution to that. And then she has multiple avenues for teachers to go to get that paid for. So. Okay, I know that Travis has an appointment that we are getting close to. And so I'm just trying to come to see if we can come to a conclusion here. I would like to present something like number one or very similar to it to you all Thursday night, and then have an agreement that as we go through this next year, we're going to look at some other opportunities to reward our people, but with the understanding that that's going to go through PPC and have them help us determine what the best use of any additional funds is. Because again, we have kind of a set pot, and if we start putting something over here, then it takes away from something else. So that would be my direction, unless you tell me something different. And the classified can come later, and if you all want to have more conversation around the nurse issue, we can do that with classified discussion.
Cool.
You good with one?
So,
Everybody
hearing
okay?
no major objections, I'm going to assume that I have the go ahead to produce something Monday night or Thursday night around this.
Yes. I think
Okay.
so. I think everybody's on board. Okay.
And PCP has 10 days, but they could come back sooner,
No.
maybe?
But by law, we have to give them 10 days to review.
'Cause
So-
that puts us right at like the 28th.
We would be getting close, yes. Now, I will also say this. The other way to do that is PPC can always bring something to the board and say, this is what we want to do, and then you all can vote on it immediately. So if they are good with it before the end of that 10 days, we can do something like that. But that would have to be directed from them. The 10-day rule is after they have had 10 days to review it, you all can vote it to be put in place whether they agree or not.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay? So that's where the 10 days comes in. If they are in agreement and want to propose it to the board, it can happen before then.
Or if they have
An alternate
changes,
proposal.
right, they can bring it before they don't have to wait the full 10 days.
That's what I was asking.
Okay.
I think we've done our work.
I appreciate your time. I know that this is taking away from your real job, your regular job, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate, that's a whole lot of information. And I appreciate you wading through it, and I appreciate your questions.
I think it's been real healthy. It's been good.
Thank you for all the information.
Yeah, thank you all for everything.
And thank Terry, because Terry did the bulk
Thank
of
you,
the work.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome. I don't.
I don't wanna know all the things you said
So do
about
we
me.
need a motion to conclude
so.
this? We need a motion. We got a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.